Well, you guys, I cannot wait for this to start. This interview is with MJ from the Silk Tea Co. And we are going to find out all about who she is, where her tea is coming from, where her creative process is, all of the good stuff. Let's get going.
Hello.
Hmm.
Hi, how are you? It's good to see
Good.
you. I love your background.
Thank you. Just painted this last night.
Oh my God, did you really? It's just extraordinary.
Oh, thank you.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I'm
goodness.
redoing my office space and yeah, thought I could use a little bit of cheeriness.
Oh my goodness. I could have thought it was like something like a wallpaper that you had purchased. It's so beautiful. I love
Oh,
it.
thank you. I am so excited, everyone. We have a very special guest for us today. We are going to be interviewing MJ from the Silk Tea Co. Is it the Silk Tea Co? I always get so confused with these things. Or is it company
You're
and I'm just like
exactly right.
overthinking?
The Silk Tea Co. It's the
Okay,
Silk Tea Co. Yes. I thought
thank
about
you.
making it the Silk Tea Company, but I think just keeping it with fewer syllables just made it more accessible. So the Silk Tea Co. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Like I said, like this is
Thank
just
you.
amazing. I can't wait to get to know to you. So, first up, we're going to dive in with just a few quick questions. And at any time you want to skip, you just say skip, and we just skip right over it.
Okay, no problem. I'm excited. I'm honored because I told you in our messages, I was like, I'm embarrassed and camera shy, but thank you very much for this opportunity. Yes.
Amazing. What are your pronouns?
Yes. So my pronouns are she, her. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Where do you live?
So I'm based in the United States. I was born here, grew up here, and I founded the Silk Tea Co. in New York City in April of 2020. And actually, our neighborhood is the Chelsea neighborhood in Manhattan, and that's where the Silk Tea Co. was born. But it was a long time in the making before that.
Amazing. And is this your full time or part time or kind of in between? Where are you at?
Sure, this is my passion. So, in my full time capacity, I actually work for a technology company, and my background is actually in foreign policy and diplomacy. So, prior to joining a large technology company, I actually served the United States as a U.S. diplomat overseas. And in 2020, during the pandemic in New York City, all of my experiences of traveling and encountering tea across different cultures just kind of rose up within me and really called me home to creating unique tea blends found nowhere else. And so the Silk Tea Co. is a company that I do in all of my passion time. So anytime that's outside of my full-time employment, I dedicate it weekends, nights, you know it, to thinking of creating these unique blends, engaging with the community, and being creative in this way.
And I feel the same way. It's like tea for me is my passion project, and yeah, my regular job doesn't have anything to do with my passion projects. But I think that that's very important for a lot of people to kind of, develop different things and different hobbies, and yeah. So has tea been like part of your life forever, and you've just kind of like pushed it into the world now?
Yes, in a way, in a sense. So I am a first generation American. And so my mom is a refugee from the Vietnam War. My parents are refugees from the Vietnam War. And I was raised by my mom. She's a single mother. And I grew up in between American culture and Vietnamese culture. And Vietnamese culture is an ancient culture in which we drink lots of tea, copious amounts of tea, jasmine tea, especially in my family. And so growing up, that was always very common. And it was just kind of unquestioned. It was just like you would for water at, a restaurant, an American restaurant, it's very common to drink a pot of tea. It's the temperature, it goes well with your hot food, etc. And so it was always in the background. Tea was. I wasn't the I can't say that I was born sipping tea and drinking tea, but I always had an interest in how my senses are engaged with the world around me. And what I mean by that is I grew up in Springfield, Massachusetts, and it's not too far from a very world famous candle company called the Yankee Candle Company, which is headquartered in Deerfield, Massachusetts, which you may have heard of. And as a child, I would take field trips to the candle company. I would beg my mom to take me to the candle company when we could get out there, and I was just immersed in a world of fragrance and different smells and scents, and it just opened up a universe to me, because as a kid, I never really did leave very far from Massachusetts and travel out of the country, with the exception of to Canada, and so smelling different smells introduced me to a whole new world and made me acutely aware of the seasons. And so I think my journey to making tea really began with my love of fragrance. And from there, after growing up and always having candles present in my life, I made candles at home in high school, and I went on to university and grad school. And there I really focused on my field, so international relations and diplomacy. And for a long time, that was always just a pleasure, to buy a candle, light a candle. It was a form of self-care and creating a sense of coziness at home. Especially when I was working overseas and very far away from my hometown. But it, I realized also that fragrance comes in many forms. So perfumes, I have an incredible love of perfumes. Jana, I collect different perfumes. I've just always loved perfumes. And so perfumes led me also, again, to consider what scents could I curate my life with to help me remember memories or help transport me to different places. So in the background of all my travels, I had my first experience working for the government overseas was at the US Embassy in Cambodia in 2009. And then since then, I've worked at the US Embassy in Kingston, Jamaica, and in Saudi Arabia, as well as for the US Department of State in Washington, D.C. And in between my travels to different countries, I realized that tea is always in the background. Like it's always served as a form of hospitality and welcome. And so it just made me, no matter what culture I was in, when I was being served tea, I felt very welcomed, I felt seen, and I felt at home. And it just that feeling of the care of brewing tea and presenting, pouring some tea for somebody, it is just incredibly powerful. And it that's what eventually compelled me to create the Silk Tea Co. And our namesake is, of course, based on the Silk Road, the ancient Silk Road that upon which tea traders would bring cakes of tea from the Far East all the way to the Middle East, to Europe, and beyond. And so my love of fragrance, this is very long, my love of fragrance led me to consider perfume, to consider how to engage my senses, and really tea is the form in which we can drink fragrance. I know that that's a strange way of putting it, but I am so intoxicated with wonderful fragrances that I wanted to imbibe it. And so that's what led me to consider how could tea take shape. And in 2016 to 18, I lived in Singapore and I was working in Singapore. And Singapore has a huge tea culture and it's beautiful, and a number of incredibly inspiring tea brands based in Singapore, very inspirational. And that again just reminded me how wonderful this experience can be of drinking tea. It opened me to a whole new world of possibilities. And so 2 years later, after having moved back to the United States, I was just thinking to myself in the pandemic, I can't travel right now. How do I go and travel by armchair and really taste it? It's one thing to read a book, which I love reading, but it's another thing to be reminded of the scent, of flavor, or an escape to some place by participating in a ritual of tea. So there you have it. It's a very long answer.
I love it. That is so amazing. That yes. I completely agree with the feeling like, you're drinking the fragrance. Like
Yeah.
your teas, the smells are the first thing that just like completely like took over with me. Like it was definitely the smell. Like it just drew me in and you completely nailed that. So I
I'm
love
so honored. Thank you.
that.
Wow.
Like, um, so your packaging is like amazing. So as somebody that just adores packaging, it's all the little details, but it's also like the feel of the bag. And then it's like the little hidden message underneath, which I don't know if everybody's figured that out yet.
Right, right. It's
I
a little
love
Easter
it
egg.
all. Yeah. So, yes, it's
Thank
just
you.
everything. And then when you open it up and, and then it's like smells wonderful and then it tastes wonderful. It's just like, it's the whole package.
I'm so
So,
honored. Wow.
um,
Thank
so these two here are definitely my favorite. I have
you.
recently just tried this one. I'm not usually a huge green tea fan, so not
Cool.
surprising that I like the smell of this. And it's not my vibe, but Jeanette, my wife, absolutely loved it. So it just goes to show the different flavor profiles, and there's something out there for everybody. But yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you.
so I have to ask about the names. You're a little bit risque with this one here.
Yes.
I
We're
love it.
it's our blend number one, and it is risque. And I considered being euphemistic or trying to obscure the meaning, but really it was just I I just was reminded of how often, part of our mission at Silk, and my mission in creating this is I'm I'm seeking to gather a community of tea drinkers who delight in celebrating their desires in all shapes and forms. And so many of us are taught and socialized um, to be not I feel like the message is like that we get when we're growing up is your full authentic self may not entirely be welcomed here. So, there's a lot that happens when we're socialized that says, you shouldn't celebrate desire. Only certain things are desirable. And so I really wanted to make sure that the Silk Tea Co. celebrates desires in all its forms. And I'm a survivor of domestic violence and abuse. And it was really important for me to reclaim my own desires for the world, my ambitions, my goals, and then also just physically and celebrating pleasure. And so it is a risque name for sure. And for me, it's an effort to celebrate something that is fun, flirtatious, but then also grounded in just authentic desire, your true self, and celebrating it, pleasure in all its forms. And so it is, I went back and forth. I was like, oh my gosh, like, can I even name it like this? And I kept thinking about it, and I was doing research, and then of course the American designer Tom Ford has a very famous fragrance that I won't name, but is also quite quite explicit in its name. And I was like, if Tom Ford can do this, like I'm going to do this too. And so I really appreciated the reception from the community, and I especially loved. I was so touched and really delighted when you took a picture of the tea bags and you had tucked the tea bags in under the wrapping paper, and the cups were toppled over, and you're like, yes, it's a risque time, they had, we're celebrating morning sex, it was there. And that's just, I mean, we're all here on the planet, and we came about some way. So, I think naming desire and not shaming it, but creating a place of welcome for it is part of the progress that we need to make as a society to celebrate everybody and and their desires. And of course it's not universal, and I understand it's this tea, it's a beverage certainly for adult tea drinkers, but I did just want to speak to this community in this way, so thank you for asking.
Yeah, I really like it's one of those things that, I sat there and I remember the first time I saw it and I was like, "Oh, gracious."
Yeah.
So it definitely, like caught your attention and everything, which is spectacular. Like, because, as a tea company, that's what you want to do. And then I started thinking more and more about it. And it's kind of like what you say, like, why this should it shouldn't it's risky, but it shouldn't be. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a normal part of life, and it's one of those things that, when we, like you're saying, like celebrate those desires and make things, not taboo and normal. And I love that. And this I think is pushing us in that direction. So thank you very much. I really like there's so much I love about your branding and everything that you're doing. So,
Thank you.
can you tell us a bit about your charity work?
Sure, absolutely. So 5% of every single purchase goes to support the UN fund for the elimination of violence against women. And this is a fund that the UN has set up to help fund international aid projects to help educate women, keep them safe, create programs and resources for them to make sure that they can be educated about what constitutes violence and also have access to help when they are, in need of it. And as somebody who has lived through that experience myself, I am I graduated from the YWCA's Domestic Violence and Abuse Recovery Program in 2015. And it's remarkable because I had volunteered with the YWCA when I was in high school, actually, when they opened up the local women and children's shelter in my town. And it was just remarkable to even imagine that years later I would return to that very same center and be a participant in their programs. It was a very humbling experience because, here I am, a US diplomat at the time, having graduated with a master's, having been so educated, so professionally trained and experienced. And I too went through a horrible cycle of abuse, and it was just remarkable how little I knew about what could be dangerous and what could be violent and what could be aggressive. And so I knew that in creating the Silk Tea Co., in addition to celebrating desires and ancient cultures, I also wanted to find a way to give back, and this is just the first step. So supporting this particular fund is the first step with our 3 blends. But as I grow the Silk Tea Co. with the community, as I'm able to produce more blends and expand, I hope to give to more organizations. And there's actually on our website interested organizations, nonprofits, registered nonprofits that are seeking support can reach out to us at impact@thesilktea.co to request support or to share their project proposals. And if there's something that I can do on behalf of the company to help fund or support in some way, I'm happy to explore that. And of course, if people have social causes which they would like a company like ours to support, they can reach out to me via DM and explore what we could possibly do. Of course, when it comes to the Silk Tea Co., our mission is really about empowering our tea drinkers, our community, to be their full authentic selves, and also for women too, to empower women. Because as a founder who identifies as female, I I'm just really grateful for the community that I've encountered already through Instagram and through just the web of tea drinkers on the internet. And whatever I can do to give back, I really hope I can. And it's just important for me personally because I'm a first generation American. You know, my mom was sponsored to the United States thanks to the kindness of a family of American strangers, the Scratches uh, of Michigan, Grand Haven, Michigan. And this family just was so generous. And we met along the way, we met so many other generous families. And for me, in creating this company, I need to also pay it forward. So, yes.
That's, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that it's so important that we share things like that, to make people feel not so alone when they're going through certain things. And
Of course.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes.
So right now you have the three blends,
Yes.
and what I understand is that um, you have them shipped into New York, is that right? And then they get packaged. How does that all happen? Can you
So
share with us?
absolutely. So each of the blends I formulate based on what I think it should taste like and smell like. So I'll come up with the ingredients. I'll say I want this certain tea as the base. So if it's sencha green tea, that's what makes sense. If it's oolong, that's what I want. And I think about the composition in all of its entirety. I mean, just like, for example, this is like a picture that we have of the tea blend, but I'll just share it. Like this, like each ingredient that I have in this is the morning sex tea blend. I'm thinking about how it looks, tastes, and feels, and how it'll steep. And so when I was thinking of morning sex, the first thing I thought of course, was how do I want it to smell? I want it to smell beautiful. And then also, I don't want it just to be like a black tea where you don't see flower petals and you don't see a celebration. You want it to be like a confetti. And so I'm thinking, what ingredients can I put in this tea to convey, you know, what I feel would be a delightful morning experience. And so I started thinking about, okay, a kiss of, it should be a little bit like creme brulee, but there should be like a citrusy note to wake people up. And that's how I started making the tea blend. I put all the formulations that I think make sense together. I do my own experiments in my own kitchen, but because the Silk Tea Co. is committed to the highest quality of luxury tea, this is not a blend that I just make by, you know, sourcing ingredients and blending them together in my kitchen. I wanted to make sure that I'm committed to the highest standards. And so within the United States, currently testing for imported ingredients is lax compared to our European counterparts. So the standards for tea making in Europe are even more stringent. And so testing for pesticides, making sure that the sourcing is above board and in line with UN conventions is very important and well practiced across Europe. And so, you know, to create my tea blends, I work with a small team in Europe, and they have been in the tea industry for over 120 years. And so they work with me on crafting exactly what it is I want. And then we process the tea there, and that's where we check and make sure that the sourcing for each individual ingredient, the blue cornflowers, the rose petals that you see in our blends, that they are just perfect for consumption. And then everything gets shipped to the US and it's processed and packed in the US. So, you know, we pack it with it's all US made packaging. So the packaging that you like so much, thank you very much. The packaging is made by an extraordinary small business called the Packaging Lab. They're based in Minnesota. And I really do recommend working with them because they have FDA approved materials for creating these packages. And you know, oftentimes tea makers or business people won't share, you know, where they get their packages from. But you know, I'm happily sharing that my packaging comes from, and this is not sponsored at all, but comes from the Packaging Lab because they're extraordinary. Typically, traditionally, you know, this kind of packaging has been reserved for very large companies. Like you need to order, you're talking about 50,000 units of these bags, right? And that's an extraordinarily large amount, a huge volume. And it's not accessible to small business people. And so the founders of the packaging lab actually said to themselves, I think there must be smaller businesses out there who might just want to make 50 of these or 100 of these or what have you. And so they had been in the packaging business for over 20 years, and they created this small business, and I'm just one of their many customers. And what's really cool, though, is that they create the packaging, you create the design, or you hire a designer to create the design. And so the Silk Tea Co. was also an effort for me to really to hone my artistic skills. So all of the packaging that you see, it's me. I made it. I taught myself Adobe Illustrator. And
Seriously? That's amazing.
I mean, we were in pandemic, so this was my equivalent of like doing a puzzle. So yeah, this is I all of this I designed. I just kind of played around with colors, and I was like, oh, this is the feel. And I was certainly inspired by my last big trip to Morocco. But all of the design that you see on the bags, it's I did it and I pulled it into Adobe Illustrator. So
That is amazing. Yeah. So instead of making bread, people should have been like, getting a better skill.
I think bread would have been very tasty too. I wanted to make bread, but I couldn't find yeast for the longest time. That there was like a shortage on yeast and getting yeast. So instead of making bread, I just made tea and I did the packaging. That's how I stayed busy and insane.
I love it. That is amazing. And yeah, that you taught yourself this skill, like that is just, and it's so beautiful. I love it all. So that is wonderful. So do we see new flavors coming down the line soon, or?
Absolutely. I am constantly thinking about what's next. I'm in conversations, whether it's DMs with people in our community, or if it's text messages from friends and conversations with my family about what's next. And so I can share several things. So first and foremost, we are getting ready to release our 4th blend in March. And it is a blend that seeks to honor the incredible traditions of the Silk Road and also bring to light 2 countries that are major to the creation and the business of tea. And that's what I can say so far.
Okay.
And I'm excited. You'll see in the coming weeks, depending on when this video airs. When do you plan to air this video?
This actually might be this coming Wednesday.
Okay. So for this coming Wednesday. So if it's shared then, I think folks will be able to see more hints about what this blend will be. I'm nervous, Jann. Like every blend that I make, I'm like, oh gosh, like somebody's gonna be like, nah, this is a flop. And that's okay, but I wanted to create something completely different that hasn't really been done before. And I'm very excited. I'm very hopeful. And I'm also always really ready to be humbled because there's so much about tea that I could learn and do better. So that's the first thing. We're releasing our next blend in mid-March. We're very excited. The packaging will be akin to this line, so we're not changing any of that. And it's going to be, what can I tease with? It could be something sweet, but it could also be something smoky.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. I'm liking where this is going.
Okay. And then the second update that I can share is that we're constantly working on blends. I have several other blends in the pipeline that I'm just trying to perfect. I've had some really lovely people in the community reach out and say, hey, I really love Earl Grey. Can you do something? And that is such an honor to receive that kind of request because what we do at the Silk Tea Co. is also each of our blends is original. So none of these tea blends can be found anywhere else. And that's why it takes so much time to bring these blends to market, because I'm working on, can we get it to where it needs to be? Can this be a blend that we can sell for years and years to come? Can this be a blend that, really people will enjoy? And I do know that, of course, there are a number of lovely tea companies out there, and maybe folks will work with wholesale tea creators to purchase an English breakfast blend or an Earl Grey, and then they'll put their own spin on it, and then they can bring it to market much more quickly. It is daunting to imagine, like, okay, everybody loves Earl Grey. It is a universal global favorite. And here I am kind of, waddling in and offering, oh, here's my twist on Earl Grey. It's harrowing. It's so nerve-wracking, but it's also fun. And so I'm working on that. And that's part of the joy of creating these original blends. It's like, how do I honor what people love, but then how do I still find a creative way to bring together culture, desire, and to tell a story with the tea blends. And the third point that I wanted to share too is that as we think about growing the Silk Tea Co. And the community, I also am looking forward to working with some extraordinary tea farms around the world to source directly and really tell the story of the farmers and the hands that cultivate the tea. And so that's the next step that I'm really excited about, is really sourcing some premium, high quality, single origin tea blends. And this will be a different line within the Silk Tea Co. because of course we create original blends that are bespoke. We don't buy any pre-created blends from some catalog somewhere. It's everything is made with the highest standards, with luxury and health and wellness in mind. But then also, I really want to surface some work that tea farmers are doing in this age. There's some incredible single origin teas out there that most of us don't have access to or don't know about. And so how can we, as one company in a sea of many, be a bridge for farmers and tea drinkers to connect? So that's going to be part of our long-term expansion.
I love that. Yes, that is wonderful. Yeah, I love hearing, I mean, for me, hearing people's stories and understanding everything where it came from. Like, I'm always just so curious. And so yeah, I love that. All right, I just saw a teapot. Tell me what you're drinking, please and thank you.
Okay, sure. Yes. I put it in a small jelly glass because so I like to drink tea. Sometimes when it's not too hot, I like to drink it in glasses. I think it comes from my time in spending, having lived in the Middle East. I'm actually drinking Desert Rose because it's Sunday, and after a certain time, I'm not allowed to have caffeine. So just really, I mean, I just don't allow myself to have caffeine. If I want to sleep tonight, it's the secret about me as a tea maker is that I hardly ever have caffeine. Like I try not to have too much caffeine because I'm just caffeine sensitive. Like if I eat a piece of chocolate, even as a kid, I ate a piece of chocolate, I'd be like off the walls with not being able to sleep. And so that's why I created a decaffeinated green tea, because I feel like, especially on Sundays, you want to get your rest in. It's good to not have so much caffeine. But this blend in particular, Desert Rose, was really inspired by my time in Morocco, and then also, when I lived in the Middle East, in Arabic, especially in the Levant, there's something called qahwa bayda, which means white coffee, and it's really just hot water with rose water, and it is so soothing. And in some countries, after a large meal, you have that, and it's kind of, it washes over your palate, cleanses it. And so in creating this blend, I was inspired by the roses that bloom in Morocco, and then also just like the sense of cleansing oneself with your palate with just something that's like delicately rose flavored. So that's why I made it. But I'm sipping it now too because there's no caffeine.
Well, that is amazing. Now you make me want to try it again. I'm going to give this another chance.
Yay!
I think that for me, the morning sex was just so like unbelievably like I was like, yeah,
I'm so glad you think
amazing.
so.
Like, yeah, so good. So, so talking about different foods and teas and stuff, what is your favorite food?
Goodness. Oh, different foods and teas. I, what's interesting is prior to my career change, when I was still working in diplomacy, something that I focused on and did research and even published a bit about was the concept of gastro diplomacy or culinary diplomacy, food as a means of communication. And naming a favorite food, it's like naming a favorite scent. It's almost for me, I'm just all my senses. It depends on the mood, the hour, where I am. But there are some cuisines that just really do just spark joy for me. I would say, and it depends on the hour of the day, but I would say sometimes, you know, uh, when I think about summer, I think most of us are looking forward to summer right now in the northern hemisphere in the depths of winter. When I think of summer, I think of tomatoes, and when I think of tomatoes, I think of Italian cuisine and just bruschetta and creating something that's like light and just delicious with luscious olive oil and oregano, basil. So I love Italian cuisine. I love Asian cuisine. So instinctively, my cravings will often be, if it's dinner time, my cravings will often be for like Vietnamese food or Korean food and kimchi or Thai food with its spices and just the fish sauce. I love strong flavors, and you can clearly see that because of the way that I style and create these teas. It's strong, it's you open a bag and you're going to smell something. So I really love those cuisines. And honestly, I love cuisines from all over the world. I mean, some of the most impressive meals that I've had in the past few years have been Peruvian food. It's just blown my mind. Um, and and I, Filipino food has just really taken off in the United States, and it's just so delicious. I can't pick a favorite food, but I'm curious about you, Jan. What about you? What are your
Oh,
favorite foods?
turning the tables. I love how you said, like, depends on the mood, the day, like
Yeah,
everything, like
or
completely. I mean, I think most of my viewers would know that I love my wife's homemade pizza.
yum. Yes. You can't go wrong with pizza. And did
Right?
you notice like every culture kind of has a pizza? Like there's always some kind of form of like a pizza in a culture. It really brings people together. Yes.
It really does, yeah. So she makes like the regular pepperoni pizza, which is delightful. But if we go out, I love getting like the Hawaiian pizza with like it's very
Ah,
popular and with
yeah.
pineapples on it, and it's just yeah, I love that sweet. And then when you get the spicy, and I love the combination of the two. So yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's
yeah,
so and I think like just as much as food connects us, that's what tea does too. It really does connect us all. And in nearly every culture I've encountered, there's some kind of tea. And it really is just so magical. And it's an honor, just an honor to be creating, like in my small little corner of the tea world, fiddling with my blends, and thinking about how to make people feel welcomed in the world and at home with themselves, and also like celebrate like the everyday. Yeah.
I love that. That's just amazing. I did hear, okay, I need to like rewind here for a second because I heard you say that you came to Canada once. Is that right?
Yes, so I did. So my first, the first foreign country that I've ever been to, is Canada, and I have family, friends, and family across all of Canada. So from Montreal to Regina, my family spread across Canada, and so we would visit, and I love visiting, and the experience is always so cool. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, that is spectacular. I'm gonna be just happy about that.
It's such a beautiful country. It's so welcoming, and of course, when you're a young impressionable child and you go to well, Montreal is culturally identifying as very French, of course, and so it feels like the most foreign experience for a young person who doesn't speak French. You're like, oh, I'm in a foreign country, and it was like my first introduction to being abroad or away from the United States. And I really do treasure um, the trips that my mom and I took there as a child to visit friends and family. It's so cool. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So is there anything that we haven't touched on that we should chat about and that you would love people to know about your business or about you?
I I'm so grateful. Honestly, I this is the first interview that I've done for the Silk Tea Co. And for me, I think I really something that I really want people to know is that at the heart of the Silk Tea Co. our doors are open, and my door's open, and whatever people desire to drink or to try or to experiment, please reach out to me, because I'm working on exactly that. It's just, how do we delight people and bring them together over tea, and then also make the ritual of tea one that centers all of us. And so my doors are open. If anybody has requests or suggestions and ways to improve, I'm here for that. And then also, I really do want to thank everybody who's just been so loving and kind. And Jann, you're top among our community members for being so supportive. I had no idea where this could begin, where this could have gone. I remember making this account, I think in April of 2020, the Instagram account I'm talking about, and just like, I was my first friend, like my personal account was my first friend, and I was like, I don't know if I'll have any other friends, but it's okay. Like, I'm just gonna put this out there, and we'll see. And since then, there's just been, it's not so much for me about the number of followers as much as it is about what people are saying and how they're messaging and engaging. And I just love it. I'm really honored, and it is a privilege to do this, to create these teas. And I hope I can do this for a long time coming. I hope so. And I really hope that along with creating teas, I can empower other small business owners, in particular women, female entrepreneurs, to go and step out to do what it is that you have inside. I think a lot of us, honestly, Jann, if there's something to know about me, is for a long time, I was on like a trajectory of doing, a certain kind of career. And inside of me, I always longed to do something creative like this, but I always told myself, like, no, you're a diplomat. You need to continue working in foreign policy. And then when I left that field to work in technology, I almost thought, like, okay, well, now you're focused on tech. Like, you need to continue going in that field. And I realized that so many of us buy into this notion that there's just one way to experience, career professional fulfillment. There's just one way to move forward, and you show us there's not. Like, in addition to your full-time role, you're building this tea community. You're giving us tea news, and it's incredible. You're doing this with the video medium. And then for me, I learned I didn't only have to do one thing. I could do different things, and in doing different things and really listening to our desires and listening to what moves us, beautiful things come about. For example, the painting on the wall behind you, you painted that. It's gorgeous. I love it. You did it. You said, I did it last night. You did it so casually. You're like, I thought that. And honestly, I thought it was like, oh, this is like some kind of new like edition of like a Mary Mecco like limited edition run or something. Like I was just flabbergasted. I was like, oh, well, okay, Jann just went off and painted that. When we listen to what's within, beautiful things come about. And when we step out to really live out what we desire, I think we give people permission to do the same. We give others the blessing. Hey, you too. You go forth. You do this too. We're in this together, and we can all rise. And that's something that makes me feel really happy. And the other thing that I wanted to touch upon too is within the tea community, I think some people are puzzled when they see the Silk Tea Co. Supporting another tea brand or cheering on another tea founder. They're like, hey, aren't you guys competitors? What's happening there? What's going on? And for me, it's not like that at all. Not like that at all, because we're all in this together. And just like fragrance or just like cuisines or what we're craving, we all have different cravings at different times. And I think that there's an infinite universe to create teas, to create teaware, to do anything related to tea or not. And what makes me feel so happy and what inspires me to continue doing this is seeing others in the community rise and seeing their stars rise and seeing how the work that they're doing ripples across the world. And that's magic. And I can never say like, oh no, I'm not for that person. So if you see me shouting out or highlighting another tea business or engaging with them, I really believe that. I think we're all in this together, and that's the energy that I hope the Silk Tea Co. sends out into the world. And hopefully that's the energy we receive.
That is amazing because that is definitely something that is like close to my heart. I'm like a big believer in, collaboration over competition. Like,
Exactly.
we all rise together and there's more than enough out there for everybody. It's like I always say, like, of course I support my other, fellow YouTubers that, talk about tea and in videos and
Sure.
stuff. I love them and I'm always cheering them on because I know that, if I'm going to buy a piece of tech, because I love technology, so when I when I go to buy a piece of tech, I am not just watching one YouTube video. I am
Right.
watching, like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to see, like 10 different people, their different opinions and what their different thoughts are. And I'm going to pick up something different from everybody because we're all looking at the world slightly differently. And it's seeing those different, values and those different, things that people pick up on that is so, so beautiful. And that's why, like you say, like it's, collaboration over competition and it's, like,
Always.
yeah, I love that. And I'm so happy that you said that because that just like, that just gets me right in the heart. So
Yes.
thank you.
I'm so grateful you said that because something that I've been thinking about a lot lately is how this notion, beauty will save the world. And I love that. And I also realize that there's so many forms of beauty. We have to encourage different forms of beauty. And, that's, I think when we gather together and we look at the expanse of the different teas that are available and the different tea makers and companies and the different bloggers, everybody is amplifying how beautiful this tradition of tea, this ritual is. And so that just makes me very, very happy. I do have a question for you.
Oh, gracious.
Yes, I'm very.
Keep turning these tables. What is happening?
What is happening? I do. If you can permit this question, if I may ask, what do you seek to find in tea blends going forward? And now that you've had and you've enjoyed so many hundreds, thousands of different teas and tasted so many different things, do you feel like there's something that you crave, that something that you'd wish to see, whether it's like in the form of like a tea blend, a flavor, or a certain kind of business practice, or a way of even packaging or delivering a good? Is there what as I feel like when tea makers talk to influential thought leaders like you in the tea community, we're we're also wondering too, like what more could we do? What could we do better? Or what could we do differently? And so I'm very curious, like, because you've been in a position to observe everyone, what are some practices or what are some elements that you wish to see out there in the landscape of tea?
Okay, great question. I've actually never been asked that, so that is spectacular. Um, you actually hit a lot of the marks when I'm looking at a tea company. So I want to be able to know like the person behind the tea brand, like,
Yeah,
you know, or if it's a giant tea brand, I want to know like the employees behind that tea
sure,
brand. So
sure.
I can kind of look at it in both of those ways. And that's why I'm not like, against giant corporations if I can understand, that their staff are treated well and, get to meet some of their staff and, feel that sense of, where they're coming from. And of course, like, I mean, the tea has to be great. So that's,
The quality has
just
to be
like
there. Yes,
the quality has
very,
to be
very
there.
good
Yeah.
high bar. Yeah.
Yeah, like it just that's a given. But definitely like, the person behind the business is huge to me. And then like the packaging, because I am so like I had somebody say to me the other day, they were like, "Oh, I can understand now, like, you have an artistic side because, like you love packaging so much." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't even think about it." I thought everybody
That makes me
thought this.
happy. I wasn't sure. I was like very shy about showing the packaging because I was like,
No, yeah,
but
for
yeah,
sure.
I'm so pleased that you appreciate it because yeah, packaging it tells a story and that's something that you know that customers deserve too, is to know more and yeah,
Yeah. But like
definitely.
even just like the feel of it, like that extra little stuff that like everything with the packaging. But then I feel that companies get bonus points. And I think a lot of my tea friends would agree with if you took this packaging and you didn't give it the, the attention that it deserved, when you packaged it to ship it and you just throw it in a box and ship it out, like
Oh
that
yes,
is
right.
just, you know what I mean? Like, so
Yes, yes, yes.
whole, it's
Yeah, you
that
don't want to
under,
just put it in a big box and then have it banged up. Right, right.
right.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's that whole experience of like, when you open it up, it feels like it's like a gift and, like that handwritten note and like it's all of those things combined.
Sure.
And yeah. I mean, for me, being able to get, 25 grams, so getting smaller packages is like huge for me because then it just allows me to feel better about being able to taste so many different teas.
Teas, right. It's true. Yeah, my tea closet is just overflowing. Um, yes, and so that's something that I was thinking about too. Is like honestly, Jan, I was wondering. I was like, what sizes should I keep? What's convenient for people? So it's good to hear that you like the 25-gram size. Good
I
to
think
know.
a lot of people like the 25 grams because it allows you to actually try out, more. So whereas somebody might not be able to like, afford to get 50 grams of all of them, to be able to get those 25 grams and then go, oh, okay, this is the one that I really love and I didn't even think that I would. And I find that always surprises me too. I'm always like, I didn't think I was gonna love this one. I thought it was gonna be this one. So it's great that way. So yeah.
That that
Yeah, all of it.
that makes me so happy. Thank you so much, and I'm just really grateful that you shared that, and I hope to tell more of the story of the people behind the teas. My own story, which I've been shy about. So thank you for inviting me out to share it a bit more about myself, but then also the hands that cultivate the tea that we drink. It's so important to tell our stories. So thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. And we will chat with you hopefully soon. Maybe we can do this again. And,
Absolutely.
excellent. I love that.